Madam President, in a state as big as mine, reliable transportation infrastructure is absolutely essential. We're home to both the largest network of highways as well as the largest number of bridges in the country. We're also a major hub for imports and exports, both along the Gulf Coast and the southern border. And as we continue to welcome more new Texans every day, the strain on our infrastructure is growing. It takes a lot of planning and maintenance to get all 29 million Texans, our visitors and crucial cargo, around the state safely and efficiently. When you add in broadband, airports, levees, waterways, it's easy to see how big an undertaking this entire process is. I continue to hear from my constituents back home, like I'm sure we all do, about the need for federal funding to help repair, maintain, and expand infrastructure across our states. But, Madam President, we just can't keep adding expenses to the taxpayer's credit card. We have to figure out how to pay for them. Earlier this year, President Biden floated his idea for an absolutely massive infrastructure bill totaling $2.6 trillion. It included a broad range of controversial and, frankly, overpriced programs, all funded by massive tax hikes on the American taxpayer. The good news is that's not the bill we're considering today. A bipartisan group of our colleagues worked with the White House to find common ground and get a bill to the floor with support from both sides. The 2,700-page text was just released last night, and I know, like everybody else, I'm still in the process with my staff of evaluating just how it will impact my state and our nation. Our colleagues who negotiated and drafted this legislation put in a lot of long hours and hard work to reach an agreement, and I commend them for their efforts. I'm eager to see a score from the Congressional Budget Office to provide a better understanding of the true cost of this legislation. But even the proponents who negotiated this deal concede that at least before the $118 billion transfer from the General Revenue Fund last night, that even then only about half of it was paid for. I believe there so far have been some missed opportunities, one being reform to the Highway Trust Fund itself. For years, the Highway Trust Fund has faced major shortfalls, and to a serious degree, Texans have footed the bill for those shortfalls because we're one of the states that receive less than we contribute. For every dollar we put in the Highway Trust Fund, only 95 cents comes back to my state. That's not the same treatment of every state. In fact, we receive the lowest rate of return than any other state. I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's unfair that Texans subsidize infrastructure projects in every other state, but that's only part of the issue here. The Highway Trust Fund has been operating in the red for more than a decade. The current state of the Highway Trust Fund is unsustainable, and unless something changes, we're going to be in dire straits, even more dire straits in just a few years. The importance of the Highway Trust Fund is we've always believed in a user fee model when it comes to infrastructure. The people that use it are the ones to pay to maintain it and to expand it. But rather than make reforms to the formula to make the fund solvent, this bill throws more borrowed money at the problem. As I said, just this morning, I learned that another $118 billion was proposed to be transferred to the Highway Trust Fund with no reforms to help put it back on sound financial footing. This is quite a step away from the user fee model where those who use the infrastructure are the ones that pay for it. This is a transfer from general revenue from the taxpayer into the Highway Trust Fund. This inclusion was a big surprise to me. And in all the conversations we've had about this legislation over the past several weeks, I didn't hear a word about a Highway Trust Fund bailout. The massive bill, as I said, was dropped last night, and we're still trying to comb through the 2,700 pages of text, which at this point appears to be full of some surprises, and I just mentioned one of them. This bill should not be rushed through the Senate without providing all members a chance to read it, to understand it, and offer their suggestions to improve it. I've been working with some of our colleagues on amendments to this legislation to provide legitimate pay-fors. Since this bill didn't go through the regular committee process, but was really cobbled together by a negotiation, again, in a bipartisan fashion that I commend for their efforts. But it makes it all the more important that since this is the first time that many of us have seen the entire 2,700-page bill, that it be subject to an open amendment process. This legislation will have impact on every state in the country, and every member of the Senate should have the opportunity to weigh in and offer changes. Members of the bipartisan group have committed to a process that allows senators on both sides to offer changes to this bill. And in the days ahead, I hope the majority leader will allow that to happen, and we will have a robust amendment process. Madam President, on another matter, my state is no stranger to tragedy. In recent years, we've experienced hurricanes, tornadoes, a crippling winter freeze, and other natural disasters that have tested our resiliency. Sadly, too, some of our communities have experienced mass shootings. Tomorrow, Texans will mark a solemn anniversary, 2 years since a gunman stormed into a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, and opened fire. 23 people died, dozens were injured, and the lives of countless El Pasoans were forever changed. My friend, the former mayor, Dee Margo, said at the time, "Hate will not overcome love. Hate will not define who we are." This shooting was undoubtedly hate in its purest form. The shooter was a white supremacist who carried out an act that can only be described as domestic terrorism. Our Hispanic neighbors and friends were purposely targeted, and both Texans and Mexicans were killed by this wicked individual. In the face of this pure evil, El Pasoans responded with love. Off-duty surgeons and doctors rushed to the hospital to save as many lives as they could. El Pasoans were comforted by their faith leaders like Father Marquez, who stayed up all night with 17 families and sat beside them as they were told their loved ones had not made it. And hundreds of Texans lined up to give blood. I was proud to be one of those 3,000 donations at the Vitalant Center in El Paso and Las Cruces. A young El Pasoan, Ruben Martinez, was just in 6th grade when this mass shooting took place. In the days that followed, he created the El Paso Challenge, where he and his mom performed 23 random acts of kindness in honor of the 23 victims. 2 years later, they're still keeping up that tradition and recently gave out roses at San Jacinto Plaza to remind people to spread love and kindness. El Paso, a community that saw the face of evil, unequivocally chose love. And I'm grateful to Texans like Ruben who've continued to make the choice day after day to honor the lives of the 23 who we lost. As we remember the lives that were lost just 2 years ago and the families and the victims that many of us comforted in the hospitals in the aftermath of this, we also carry the painful reminder that justice has not yet been served. Last week, the federal hearing for the accused shooter was postponed until November, and the state's case continues to await a trial date due to delays stemming from COVID's impact on our court system. My heart is with the families and friends looking for closure who must now deal with this additional delay in justice being served. I know I speak for all Texans when I say that the 2-year anniversary approaches tomorrow, that as it approaches, we all stand in solidarity with El Pasoans and remember the enduring strength and spirit of this vibrant community. Madam President, I yield the floor.